I'm making this video for two reasons. Firstly, it was requested by a commenter. Secondly, I've noticed the rise of the left on YouTube with people such as ContraPoints and Three Arrows becoming increasingly popular. I mean, they're pretty great, I guess, and you should probably go and subscribe to them and whatnot. I mean, they also helped me to come to a few difficult realizations lately, such as the fact that, systemic racism and that is a big deal, really, especially in the US, and the fact that Dave Rubin is a bit of an opportunistic hack who doesn't seem to know a great deal about politics and maybe is a bit of a conservative shill. I mean, either he can't be bothered to do a simple Google search on Trump's actual policy, is just a complete idiot, or isn't bothering because he's being paid by someone. And also that people on the right can be dodgy sometimes. People like Stefan Molyneux, for example. And also that classical liberals are, or at least have been for a lot of time, worryingly cuddly with the alt-right, especially with shared memes and whatnot. I even changed my channel name from the Centrist Gorilla to the Curious Gorilla to avoid attaching myself to any specific way of thought, fully expecting to actually end up shifting well leftwards, but I actually moved somewhat to the right since then instead, economically and in some social issues, so I still consider myself right of centre now, but I still acknowledge the issues that I just mentioned as being more or less accurate, but my philosophy is more right-leaning at the moment. At least changing my channel name was the right thing to do anyway. A great worry of mine is that these lefties on YouTube are starting to legitimise ridiculous and dangerous, stupid ideas like socialism. My first criticism of socialism is just purely terms of empirical evidence. It is a habit of being so hopelessly inefficient as to be of benefit to essentially nobody. Well, maybe the people in charge of production. The top 20% of people. Oh, it's almost like Pareto was onto something, isn't it? Anyway, the attitude toward socialism and Marxism strikes me as somewhat like a theoretical chemist finding a way to make chemical C by mixing chemicals A and B, writing it down on paper, and when he actually mixes the two chemicals together it creates a massive explosion, and rather than acknowledging the results, he keeps on banging about how clever his paperwork looked. That's not how science works. Stop calling Marxism science. Leftists, anyway, don't seem to believe in the Pareto principle. They don't appear to even believe in human nature. They just see everything as a social construct, more or less. So what I've done is created this lovely little simulation here. As you'll see, these are actually just simple bars with a red section and a blue section. There's no social constructs here, no evil Judeo-Christian values to bias these. They're simply acting based on the information that they have. So, I'll just explain how it works. On the right here, we have a bar. This is what the market wants. This is the best possible outcome, which is currently, as you can see, at 63%. This one here is the average of the votes or choices or production of the workers who are listed here. This is the average, and the difference between this and this bar is the main issue here. The greater the difference, the worse off we are, and the lesser the difference, the better off we are. And up here is a graph which shows the differences over time. Essentially what happens is, if there's a change for the better and this percentage gets closer to this percentage, then these will take their random choice that they've previously made and stick with it. If the percentages get further away from each other, these will take the random choice that they've made and they will leave it behind and choose another random choice instead, a random change. So they will all gradually move up and down in constantly trying to improve to find the optimum, which is hidden, of course, because in real life you don't know what the market optimum is, but you try to create a feedback loop that will try to create the difference between producing the equivalent of the blue product or the equivalent of the red product. So what I'm just going to do here is I'm going to reset it with these 5 here, and I'm going to set the update time to a little bit quicker, to a fifth of a second, and just add, say, 7 of these bars here. And you can see it's working over time to do different things. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make the number of bars here 20, and they'll go off the screen, but you'll just know that there's 20. And I'm going to set the update time to 0, so it just goes as fast as it possibly can, and there we are. Look at that. So this is essentially the equivalent of what you would have under socialism. You've got a series of workers all democratically making decisions, which is aggregated onto here, which should hopefully be something similar to the market optimum here. And you can see how well it's done that on this graph here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that it's random and doesn't really feed back properly, and enter. This is what random chance would do. You can see it still sort of verges toward the top because obviously it's more likely to be both of them in the middle, but this is the curve produced by random chance. And now we're going to change the number of decision makers to 1 and stop it from being random. And this is essentially to illustrate what happens under private ownership of capital, with one person making the decisions. And you can immediately see that it stays pretty near the top because it can respond very quickly to what the market needs here. And I've already taken a few of these as screenshots and edited them together with different colours to be able to show you those. Right, so we can see here I've just compiled them together. We have essentially random chance, which is a green line, as you can see here. At the top we have the capitalism, which is in blue, and socialism, which is in red. As you can see, it's far more unstable, and it's lower for longer because it just can't respond as quickly to the needs of the people because it's too complicated. There's too many people making decisions, too many people to have a proper feedback loop, too many people to actually have the right information to know what to produce. It seems here quite clear that it's just capitalism is just a more efficient, a more effective system, and this didn't take people made to be selfish by culture or society. This transcends culture and society. This is just purely people behaving in rational self-interest based on what they're able to know. And it's quite clear that private ownership of capital is the most efficient way to go about managing resources. And this doesn't even take into account the fact that innovation, for example, is driven by capitalism and all the other advantages that come with private ownership of capital. So this is the case I'm making here. It's nothing to do with society or culture. It's just purely about the incentives in place to make people make decisions and about the information that they have when making their decisions. Of course, if you're aware of a form of socialism that gets around the information incentive problem, I'd be interested to know. So let me know in the comments if you do, and hopefully you enjoyed this video.